everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood demigod lover here, and today we're talking about something you probably don't want to talk about. Jason. Jason is a very, very underrated character. I want to use this video to analyze why that is and how I think we can appreciate him more. So one of the many reasons why Jason is underrated. He's not an OG. He was introduced in The Lost Hero. He's not one of the original Percy Jackson characters. Let's face it, we only really read Lost Hero because it was an extension of Percy Jackson. So we had absolutely no desire to care about these new characters, Jason, Piper, and Leo. So Rick had to kind of force us to care about them and give us backstories that kind of made us connect with them whether we wanted to or not, which was done pretty well for Leo especially, and pretty well for Piper too. But Jason can't really have a backstory because he's amnesiac, and that's kind of really important to the plot of this book, is that he's amnesiac. There's no solid backstory to really connect to. We do learn that Thalia is his sister, and therefore his home life is probably not the best, but without any actual concrete backstory, we can't really connect to Jason as a character. Now we do get a concrete backstory for Jason later on, but it's kind of much later on, like in the Blood of Olympus. So it's, a little late there, buddy. And compared to, and that's key word here, compared to the rest of the seven, his backstory is a little bland. But again, that's compared to the rest of the seven. The seven all have very in-depth backstories, including Jason. Jason's just isn't quite as in-depth. Jason's backstory, parts of it are just less realistic, because he kind of grew up as a demigod. Being raised by wolves at 2 years old and growing up in an army is not something as many people can relate to. I think there are some people who would be able to relate to the whole thing of being abandoned by your parents. And some people can relate to the whole thing that Jason was kind of expected to be a golden boy and a leader, despite the fact that he never really wanted any of that. I think he's great. It's just people are always comparing the seven. And when you are comparing the seven, Jason comes in dead last for almost everyone. And that is kind of sad. I'm gonna be honest here, there are parts, especially of Blood of Olympus, where Jason is kind of boring and his chapters are boring. But, there are worse things. And I think people just kind of don't acknowledge how great Jason is because they're always comparing him to the rest of the seven. But when the Burning Maze came around, that all changed. I feel like we really grew to appreciate Jason after that, if only it weren't too late, but I guess it's better than nothing. It's also because Lester doesn't think of Jason as his brother. They are technically half-brothers. But Lester, being a former god, thinks so highly of himself he's just a demigod. But he later grows to understand and see Jason as a brother. Just like people are grieving along with Lester, they are also taking Jason for granted along with Lester. They're taking Jason for granted along with Lester and then realizing that Jason is amazing. I'm feeling bad for taking him for granted. How easy it was to forget that Thalia was also my sister, and Jason was my brother. At one time, I'd have discounted that connection. They're just demigods, I would have said. Not really family. Now I found the idea hard to accept for a different reason. I didn't feel worthy of that family, or of Thalia's forgiveness. People just tend to forget that Jason is amazing. They just see him as this bland, just that, leader, hero guy, but he doesn't want that. He really does care for his friends. He cares for Piper and Leo and Nico and Hazel and Frank and Raina and everyone, basically. I think we kind of think of him as kind of the mom. He acts all tough, and he looks tough, and he looks like this bland hero, but really, he's just this guy who really just cares about his friends. He's good to people, and he's nice to people, and he really does care about them. He's not just this bland guy, and he acts like Team Mom, and I think that's kind of something we should acknowledge a little more. I feel like if we saw him that way, we wouldn't keep judging him as just the bland hero that is not as good as the rest of the seven. And here is an example of why I think that. The memory of the South Wind spoke in his mind. You can't choose your parentage, but you can choose your legacy. Jason felt like he was being reassembled, one layer at a time. His heartbeat steadied. The chill left his bones. His skin warmed in the afternoon sun. No, he croaked. He glanced at Annabeth and Piper. My loyalties haven't changed. My family has just expanded. I'm a child of Greece and Rome. He looked at his mother for the last time. I'm no child of yours. I rest my case. I feel like not only is Jason amazing and underrated, but his death was handled really well. Because it's Lester learning how to grieve. Yes, he's lost people he cares about, but he's never really grieved in the way that a human does. And that's really interesting to see in how he grieves Jason and how he kind of reacts to it. Frank's survival was wonderful, a miracle, but somehow it made losing Jason feel all the more unfair and painful. As a former god, I knew all the usual responses to mortal complaints about the unfairness of dying. Death is part of life. You have to accept it. Life would be meaningless without death. The deceased will always be alive as long as we remember them. But as a mortal, as Jason's friend, I didn't find much comfort in those thoughts. So yeah, in summary, Jason is awesome. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment below what you think about Jason. How did your impression of him change after the Burning Maze? This has been the Demigod Lover. Bye.